Welcome to On a Way with Beryl Botman in conversation with Elna Mouton. There's so much that the two of us could be talking about, but today I would like her to share her journey as social worker and theologian and being the spiritual companion that she was to me. Hope you enjoy this conversation. Elna, I'm so glad to have you here today for this conversation where I can't even remember how we met and where we've met, but you've become such a significant person in my life, particularly spiritually, that I'm glad to share this moment with you. Welcome.
Thank you, Beryl, and thank you for the initiative and the opportunity to be
Yeah.
part of this.
Yeah, so maybe I should start there. I I can't remember how we have met. I can't pinpoint a particular day, and normally I'm quite good at that. And maybe there's some meaning in that, but let's not go for the meaning. Um, we met at Stellenbosch University, that I know. Um, could it have been at the Faculty of Theology? Uh,
I recall the time when Russell was rector very vividly, that we often met, and that those were great times. Before that, since 2000, because the staff and students of UWC joined the faculty in Stellenbosch at the beginning of 2000. And I joined the faculty in July 2000. So that was a coincidence that grew in my own mind in terms of significance. But I guess we did cross each other's ways during those days, but it actually developed later on,
Yeah.
the friendship between us.
Yes. So I would like us to go back um, because as our friendship developed, I've come to learn that you had such a rich career path. And I'm particularly fascinated by the days that you have worked and lived in the Eastern Cape. Yes, we haven't really spoken much about it because remember we still need to do a trip to the Eastern Cape where
You're right.
yes.
Sure, thank you for asking that, Beryl. You picked up how important that part of my life and my career was to me. Let me start this way. I grew up in Ceres and did my first degree in Stellenbosch, and then went to the Huguenot College in Wellington. And that was all part of my preparation for what I experienced from primary school days as a calling to work in cross-cultural situations. And the Eastern Cape just became kind of the logical home for me in that sense. So I went to the Transkei, the former Transkei, now part of the Eastern Cape, at the beginning of 1975. Now, you will remember that was a very turbulent time in
Yes.
our country. The year after that was all the upheavals,
1976.
1976
Yes.
in Soweto. So, and another thing, the Transkei got its so-called independence in 1976. So it did not make much sense for a white woman, if I can call it that, to go to the Transkei just prior to its becoming independent. So I tried to figure out what my role could be, And one of the first things that I did was to visit the then moderator of the Dutch Reformed Church in Africa, Reverend Matikina. And I just openly asked him, how do you think should I see what I feel as a calling to be here right now? And he had that faraway look in his eyes and he said, bring everything that you have, Elna, that you bring with you. Serve the people, be who you are, learn the language as soon as you can, etc. But, and that was a turning point, the first turning point in my Eastern Cape experience, be prepared to play the second fiddle. Now that was good advice, even if I did not understand the real scope of it then yet. In any case, it was a wonderful time. I worked with a congregation as a youth worker or as a social worker. I was then trained as a social worker. It was 20 years prior to the time when the Dutch Reformed Church confirmed women in the full-time ministry. The then Mission Church, later Uniting Reformed Church, did that earlier in 1982. So there were options, but I was just born a bit too early for all those systems to be in place yet. But I'll tell you later on about that. Beryl, so I was tasked to work amongst the youth, and my first mission was to listen carefully, to listen to everyone who crossed my path, to learn, to be open to learn from people, and goodness, was I enriched from day one. People welcomed me in their lives, in their hearts, so warmly. It touched me very deeply. However, I soon realized that the realities of that part of the world was very serious. It's a kind of community, and I worked amongst the Amakonjwayo in the Neleni district at a place called Kanzibe. There was a hospital, general hospital, and a TB hospital, and some staff members. And I soon realized that that community was characterized by gender bias, by social stratification, by, political kind of, lots of political energy, but they still had to kind of define where they actually belonged in this country, and vice versa, of course. So I had to find my way amidst of all those biases and stratifications and stereotypes and whatever, and try to interpret the Bible and appropriate it with people. Not reading for, but reading with.
How long did you stay there?
I stayed there for 4 years.
And in those 4 years, you learned to speak fluent Xhosa. Or did you do it before?
Well, since I knew that I would work in the Transkei, I set out long before then, and I am very much interested in languages, so I took isiXhosa as a major subject for 3 years, and that was great fun. But as you would know, one doesn't understand or speak a language that well after 3 years, mainly kind of in theoretical terms. But yes, I was challenged very much so, and I was provided a young girl who walked with me, and she, I still remember her very well, Nomasango, and she taught me. She was a great teacher, and she said, just remember, one day you will do it all by yourself, and I will just step back then.
She's very wise. Yes.
So she warned me and she encouraged me in every possible way. And after 9 months, I said, "No, Masango, I think I'm okay now." So then I could help myself. In isiXhosa, one can say things in many different ways. So I could at least ask my way
Yeah.
wherever I got stuck. I could say, "Could you repeat that in different, just slowly or in other terms?" Just talking
Okay.
about the Eastern Cape, then I went to Port Elizabeth after that. So in total, I spent 25 years in the Eastern Cape.
Was it at Port Elizabeth that you started your theological education or not?
Yes,
Yeah.
I first worked in the Livingston Hospital and in industrial ministries, also as an ecclesial social worker. That was also a deeply formative and transformative time for me in my career. I didn't live city life initially, but I really got to love Port Elizabeth very, very well at that stage. And then, kind of halfway through that, in total, I was employed by the Synod of the Dutch Reformed Church in the Eastern Cape for 15 years. And then in 1985, I enrolled for a master's degree at the then University of Port Elizabeth. Today, of course, the Nelson Mandela University.
Yes, and then all those, when as you are speaking about how you've learned Xhosa and how isiXhosa and how you have approached the new community, you've taken that throughout your life. I could see it when you came to Stellenbosch University. You brought your whole self, and you could interpret the community and find your place in that. So much so that you have become the dean of the faculty.
Beryl, yes, I think in the end, I think I had two great passions in life. And the one was certainly to explore cross cultural worlds. I think I could have been born with that, but my mother encouraged me very, very much to explore friendships, people, communities, right where they are. And in those days, we were so successfully separated from one another. So it took quite an effort
Yes.
to cross boundaries and to reach out to people and to communities. And then my other passion was really to read the Bible in communion, to read it with people and to understand it. I was so intrigued and excited by the documents of the Bible. Later on, I read a bit more about the New Testament, but in total, it was such a formative power in my life. And somehow I just did what I enjoyed. And you talk about the years when I was dean. I couldn't believe it then that people made such an issue of it and such a fuss about it. I was just doing what I thought should be done.
Yeah.
Just took the next step, the next challenge in my life, and somehow it turned out to be something special. Meaning, those days in the Transkei, when I came to Stellenbosch in 2000, I believed people were interested in what I brought to the table because I was the first one in many respects, the first woman, the first person who was not an ordained minister at the time because of reasons I've referred to, and an unmarried person. So I was kind of a fremdkörper, so to speak, in that faculty, and yet it turned out to be an asset, turned out to be the right gift at the right time.
Yes.
And I'm not saying it, I'm saying it because it was also a gift to me. So we're talking about the grace of God, God being the choreographer of our lives, taking us places, teaching us many, many lessons, and then at some specific moment, it seems to be what other people may need as well.
Talking about gifts, we became closer when I felt the greatest loss of my life. And somehow or another, our paths crossed in a very particular way. Um, and the loss that I felt that I had to make sense of, I could do that with you. And in a very true and honest way, you quickly became my, what I call my spiritual companion. And I could work with my grief. I could walk with my grief with you. And you became my gift. You were a gift to me in the time that I felt such immense loss. And um, the way in which we had conducted our relationship was simply being in one another's presence. And at that time, I had floods of words. I had lots to say about a whole myriad of feelings and emotions. And you were the quiet listener, the quiet companion, but quietly guiding me. And I remember I would call you and say, I need to speak. I need you to be with me. And you'd come. And how we would walk in circles in our garden. You remember how we do
Very
that?
well.
Yeah. Yeah. And how I don't recall what exactly I was talking to you about, but after our visit, your presence and the few sentences that you were allowed to say in all the floods of words that I had really comforted me. And from there, our friendship grew and deepened. And the one thing that I do appreciate and I value is that you took me with you on a road trip. We went to Lambert's Bay. And what made it so special was that it was your own journey with your family that you didn't even know or that you have discovered. And that was a great way of, I feel like a cementing of what this ingredient or this thing was that we were building together. And then further, you encouraged me, but mostly you would listen. And so I want to commend you for being such a wonderful spiritual presence. And I know for a fact when I hear you speak about your early career, how that is just something that you do and something that you are. And then after you retired, you went to um, Andrew
Murray Center
Murray's,
for Spirituality.
that's right, and you invited me to come and be. And you said to me when I arrived, you don't have to do anything. You just come. You can sleep all day. I said to you, no, I will never sleep. I don't sleep. Did I sleep? And that is the first awakenings that I had in terms of time and space that you have brought to me. That there's no particular distinction between time and space. So, do you recall how you introduced me to this notion of threshold, of being, and here and not here, and how that works?
Sure. Yes, we've come a long way, Beryl. And what an incredibly precious path. Can I just give one step back and say that you started by referring to the greatest loss in your life? It was such an honor and delight to work with Russell in those early years of his Stellenbosch years, and to see him flourish as what people refer to as an intuitive theologian. He was so present in the moment, and talking about a gift, I experienced him as a profound gift to the university community and to the Faculty of Theology in particular. You would remember that people were not unanimous uh, about decisions to be made about UWC moving towards Stellenbosch and continuing the theological education there. And Russell challenged everybody and said, let's go there and change the place. And that's exactly what he did. But not in a controlling kind of way, but in an inviting way, bringing people on board, sharing a new vision, etc. And we were all absorbed by that. It was such an aha moment in the history of the University of Stellenbosch and in the history of our country in terms of tertiary education. So his departure was just too soon, and we all were stunned by that. So in my own grief, I also tried to make sense of this. And it was just so kind of natural for me to reach out to you without knowing what to say or what to do, but just be there for you. And I remember those moments that you refer to very, very well. And I got to know you as someone who pays great attention to symbolism. Things would happen, a sign, a bird, a flower, things would happen at different stages. And you would assign authority to that. And I was intrigued by that. And I thought, well, let's be open to what this journey may entail. So it happened that you shared a lot with me about your family, about your grief, and about rebuilding your own life again, finding your own identity amidst of all these losses. And that, of course, was a huge privilege. I will always hold it close to my heart and treasure it as a very, very special part of our journey. It's kind of ironical that we would have to learn one another's circumstances and persons under such circumstances. We would have
Yes.
preferred to do it under different circumstances.
Yes.
But I think it was particularly because of the depth of the pain, the loss, the longing that we were trying just to be there for one another and see where this might be taking us.
What sense we can make of,
If at
any.
all possible,
Yeah.
exactly. So it was in view of that I thought, well, I've learned so much of your family context and of this whole journey. I would like to reciprocate by inviting you to get to know my family better, and that's why we went to
Yes.
Lambert's Bay and doing some grave hunting, etc.
Yeah.
And you were just as you were such a reliable companion, and in your own way, you allowed me to explore that journey and just be there as a friend and a soulmate on my side.
And then I met your family, your brothers and their families in Wellington, and that is, I think, when you were working in Wellington, that I became aware of your teachings and the, I don't know what to call it, but not the motto, but the identity of what you were trying to do and achieve at the Andrew Murray Center for Spirituality. Because for me, I was trying to make sense of what I see, what I feel, and this in the symbolism of my life. And you introduced with that book that you have, after you've done your term, which went on very long at the Andrew Murray Center, but exploring the place as a place of, or how do we explore places of being a threshold, and the threshold between heaven and earth.
Thank you for picking up that notion of the threshold, Beryl, also from the previous question. Yeah, as you might have noticed, I have kind of enjoyed the challenge of crossing boundaries from very early in my life. So this has kind of become a dragging metaphor, I would say, for me, the whole idea of a threshold, or as in Latin they would say limen, and that would lead to the idea of liminality. So it has a long history, but let me be brief. On a threshold, many things can happen. In fact, I think of at least two major things that happen on a threshold. The one is that you are in a position of discomfort because you're out of your comfort zone. You are in a place where where you used to be. You don't know where you're going yet, so it's kind of a risky, fragile, discomfortable place. Yet, on the other hand, things happen on a threshold that were not necessarily possible whilst you were in your comfort zone. And therefore, a threshold is also a place of wonder. I would call it a place of magic, even divine magic. And place can be such a space, such a threshold where you dwell for a moment, but you know you have to leave from there. So you need to be open for what can happen to you at that threshold. And as you remember, we used to talk about thin spaces,
Yes.
as the Celtic tradition refers to. Thin spaces being places where you become more aware of presence, God's presence, but also one another's presence, more aware of heaven and earth being brought closer to each other and being surprised by encounters and meetings that happen there. A place, in other words, where time and space take on deeper meaning than meets the naked eye.
Yes, Elna, you always manage to place me in a frame of contemplation. I have to go back now and think and rethink where I dwell and how I dwell, how I tread, what my thresholds are, and the thin spaces that I think I did experience.
Absolutely.
And here we are again in this deep conversation that I think we can continue as we journey along. But thank you very much for coming and sharing yet again so much of yourself.
Thank you, Beryl.
Thank you for joining On Our Way with Beryl Botman in conversation with Elna Mouton. Walk tall, tell it all. You've been listening to On Our Way with Beryl Botman in conversation. My books are available online and from me directly. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram to learn more about my book talks and appearances. Feel free to write to me at beryl.botman60@gmail.com. Thank you for your time.